Hey everybody, hope you're well. It's James here over the channel, and today I've got Andrew Archer. He has been missing in action for a little while, but he is back, and he has a whole host of questions to answer today, and he's got as much time as we need to go through these. I want to say a massive thank you to the community for the passion and all the questions and everybody chipping in. Absolutely brilliant. And I just want to say a massive thank you to Andrew. I know you've been incredibly busy at the moment. How have you been?
Yeah, we've been really busy actually. So, I mean, along with all of the robotics projects, we've been getting ready for launch, and it's just been incredibly hard to make everything work in a way that anyone can use it, so we've been spending a lot of time on that. I think we have it dialed in now, and so now we're at CES, and I think we're a couple hours actually a day from launching. So
Wow.
Yeah, really close. Yeah,
that's awesome. And yeah. I suppose that for the community as we go forward, we're going to do some more regular updates, keep them in the loop with everything.
And so one of the things that's been really difficult. Obviously, everybody knows we're under NDAs and whatnot, but also it's the kind of our target arena that we're moving into, our target client base. There's a lot of competition heating up in this area, and so we've been trying to release as much information as we can, but also still keeping quiet because, for someone like Amazon or Google to come along, they could easily just kill us, right? If they knew exactly what it was, like exactly how it completely worked. And so we've been a little sheepish around that until we had everything perfect, because what we've figured out is if the onboarding experience isn't perfect, it's going to be very hard to get mass adoption. And I think that, like, the crypto world in general has that exact problem, right? Most of the projects, they don't get adoption because it's too hard to use, or it doesn't have a use case, right? And so our use case is extremely strong. I mean, we have companies using it, but it's that, how do you get a normal business able to use AI and robotics? This has never been done unless you pay an integrator hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to do it for you, or you have your own development team. How do you make that entire process in 30 minutes? And it's really hard. It's just, I think just our onboarding experience has been harder than the entire project. To be honest, we've redone it 4 times in the past 3 months because we think we get it right, and then we try it again, and then we realize it's just a touch too difficult, right? And so then we had to reiterate, and now we actually made a massive change 3 days ago, because we went through the onboarding process that we're going to launch with, and I found one small thing that it just wasn't quite right? And if it's not perfect, you have mass fall off. And so that, honestly, getting that entire sequence and then all of those operations into a way everyone can use it has been extremely vital, and that's why we haven't really been talking about it much, because that is what is going, besides all of the technology, right? But that is what's going to make sure people use it and it spreads quickly.
Yeah, so it sounds a little bit like iPhone versus Samsung. Like, I hate using the Samsung. I just can't. It doesn't feel intuitive. It feels difficult. Right. Yeah, I get an iPhone, and I can just do everything straight away. Same as my little lad. He just picks it up and away he goes. It's just in.
Right, exactly. And that, it's, part of the problem is we're all engineers too. So our first crack at it is how an engineer would do it. So we had to get a ton of feedback from, our testers, we've done study groups on it, tons of different things to just figure out exactly how we can get that iPhone experience. And so We'll be launching with our point 8 version of onboarding, and then we actually have an update to it coming out in the following 2 weeks to 1.0. That adds just one more step of grace to it. So,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
So we'll see that, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So I suppose I'll start with some tougher questions, shall we say? But there's obviously been quite a few members of the Aitheon team that have left. What sort of impact has that had on the business? And
it actually really hasn't had that much impact. So we've had 2 people that the community knows leave, but really it's an entire team behind the scenes that really is doing this project, right? And in the community, no one ever hears from these people. There's like over 100 people working on this project, right? And so when we have 1 or 2 people leave, it's like 1 or 2%, right? So it really has had no big impact. They were not involved in development at all. So we just kind of kept moving. It really hasn't changed how we operate, how we do business, or any of those things. Hasn't changed any of our client relationships. They really don't care. They care more about, is the tech working? It is, great, right?
Deliver on time,
right? And then how fast can we have the newest things? That's it. That's all anyone ever cares about.
Yeah.
And so, as with any growing company, we're gonna have people come and go all the time. It just is what it is. So.
Okay. Next question is, obviously, at the early doors of the Aitheon project, there was let's call it the big robotics deal on the table. When will there be an announcement of this? Because obviously, I think back in early, when the project launched, there was the whole hype around it. I think it's why a lot of people invested. Is there a potential date that this will be announced?
So we don't even know the date, but what they're starting to do is they're starting to talk a little bit more about it publicly. And so people that kind of have an idea what it is or what's going on, they can find this on the internet. And so we don't know when they're publicly launching, but they are rolling into beta. And so to certain markets with what we're working on. And so that's super exciting for us. It's exciting for them. And hopefully we should hear about a large-scale rollout soon. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And I suppose if people do want to know or clues to who it might be, then make sure you join up to Telegram. There's some breadcrumbs in there that might lead you to where you need to go.
Yeah, I mean, you can like when we're posting about things and whatnot, we're very careful not to violate any NDAs, but you can kind of tell where the teams are, right? And when you can tell where teams are, you can kind of figure out, there's only so many people playing in this space, right? So you can figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But we can't obviously share anything about who it is, what they're doing, or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And what is the relationship like with said robotics company?
It's kind of the same relationship you have with any large enterprise. Large enterprises are difficult to work with, to say the least. It's just because there's a lot of different elements that go into running a massive company, right? And so you have a lot of different teams, a lot of different people, different politics, goals. Everyone has it. Certain teams have different goals. And so it takes a lot of time, a lot of time to do things, a lot of time to get approvals, a lot of time, making this team is happy and that team's happy and everyone's happy. So it's just typical, large corporate enterprise work. And so, originally with Aitheon, we were targeting small to mid-sized businesses, right? They're typically much more fluid. They're more adaptable, similar to the platform, right? And it's designed to be a high-speed platform. And so it's been a little bit of a struggle for us because we have to, please our goal clients, but then, we're lucky to have them as a large client, but it's it's different type of work. And so when you're trying to balance two of these things, you're getting pulled in two different directions all of the time. And so you see that a lot. That you see that come out a lot in the community where, we're trying to do this and make these people happy, and then we're trying to make clients happy, and then we're trying to get out to those small to mid-sized businesses, and then it's kind of the situation where you can't make everyone happy, right? And so you have to have this give and take with everyone. And so hopefully we're kind of exiting that position now with this launch. We have a new customer service team coming on that will go with this launch. So we'll have 24/7 live support with the software for small to mid-sized businesses. That comes with it and is free. And then we have some dedicated people that will just be working with the enterprise clients, because now that is focused on platform launch, small to mid-sized businesses, and mass adoption. And then they will be taken care of with a separate team. Okay. And so it's taken a while, but we're finally to where we want to be. So yeah, nice. It's good. We're all very, very excited. So.
And to date, have you sold or leased any any robotics to, let's say, this bigger company, or to any mid-size or small companies to date?
Yeah, so we have a lot of robots going out right now. We just set up a new space in Kyiv. Actually, a lot of the team there don't even know about it yet, because it's a surprise for them. Some of them are on holiday now. It's a surprise for when they get back, but we just leased a new office space there specifically for building robots. And so now we'll have operations in India and we'll have operations in Ukraine. And so our Ukraine division that's working on the robotics will service Europe. And so now we'll start moving into Europe with those robotic systems. So you can see, like, we have Yezik with us, we have the Felix robot, the perception system here. And so now all of those systems will be available in Europe too.
And are those robots now in action, processing, using the ACU token? And
and so that's one of the things we get a lot of questions on, is like how much does it cost, or how many ACU, right, does it use? And so a typical robot, I can kind of explain that to you. So Creator Studio to deploy to a robot costs about 50 cents an hour in USD terms. Whatever, I'll talk in USD terms, and people can convert it to. So it's about 50 cents an hour to use that with the build systems and everything to deploy to the robots. And so if you're doing updates or anything like that using Creator Studio, that is what is getting consumed. Now, once the robot is deployed and online, it's running Orchestrator, communicating with Orchestrator, and then Smart Infrastructure and the device managers. And those are running anywhere between 6 to 10 cents an hour-ish, depending on the load. And so you can kind of figure that per robot. That's the consumption rate for the robot. So then when you end up getting thousands of robots and whatnot, you start to see the volume there. I had sent out some pictures in the Telegram group of a typical business, right, that we had some data on, of about 20 users using the system. And it comes down to about, I think it was like between $7 and $9 a day they were using. Okay. So that's what we can typically see on a organization, but then also, like, what does a robot use? And so when we look at like what the robot is using, it's the same for like a Digibot, which is your process automation type thing. So that's kind of what we can expect for volumes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's sort of keeping the cost low for whoever's actually buying them and using the robots and making it viable.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a continuous use. So as that grows, that's where we'll see a lot of use.
And then for, like, I suppose just for the community, so you've got someone who buys, say, 20 robots to do X tasks. Mm-hmm. Where are they buying the ACU? Are they able to buy it through the platform? Are they buying off the exchanges? How does that work?
Yeah, and so what they can do is they can buy off of the platform itself. And so what we do is we have the treasury system with the liquidity pool, and there's been a lot of questions on that and like inflation and how does all of that work. And so we're going to release a separate kind of article explaining it in details because we've talked about it in the community, but we want an actual FAQ that we'll have for just that. But the idea is a lot of users are not crypto friendly, right? They just don't know about it. You know, the crypto community is still very small in the world. And so we spent a significant amount of time making sure a user that's a business owner can come on the platform. He starts using it. He can buy the ACU he needs. And we're balancing it with a liquidity pool and all of these things so it comes off the exchanges correctly and all of that. And then it can be used. So he doesn't have to worry about, you know, what is my wallet address? How do I get on an exchange? What like I have to KYC with this exchange that I've never heard of before? Like, it scares a lot of people. Like, I mean, we are all used to it because we're in crypto, but most people are not. So when you're asking someone, you know, you ask them to sign up and then go to this random exchange, give them all of your information, then buy some tokens, put them on a wallet, and then import them into a platform. No one's going to do that.
Yeah.
Right? Ever. And so we made a way where they don't have to do any of that. And so it still connects to all the exchanges and everything functions as normal, but they're just doing it within the platform.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen a few projects having to come up with solutions around that. One of them come up with platform tokens, and then you can spend the tokens on the platform as you need them. But in the background, you know, they are changed. You know, all the stuff, geeky stuff that we love that they don't want to see. It all happens as such seamlessly.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's been a challenge, but yeah, it seems to work really well. You guys will see that when the systems launch, and you'll be able to experience that through like the billing management tool and stuff like that. So
okay,
yeah.
And then obviously at the very beginning there was the pilot programs, specialist operators, all these types of things.
Yeah.
There was an initial, you know, you had to hold so many tokens. Is that still the case, or how's that looking right now?
Yeah. So how that's looking right now is we actually have. The pilots we've been testing now. We've been testing the piloting system for a while. It's about 4 months now, heavy testing on it, 5 months. And so now what we're going to be doing this month is we're going to give opportunities for other people to try this out because it's really cool. And so we won't really we're going to do it kind of a lottery system right now, just so anyone can kind of try it. And then as it rolls out, we'll have more information about what it takes to be a pilot, what you have to do, how much do you have to hold, and things like that. Because we're going to have some training requirements. You're going to have to get like an Aitheon pilot certificate and things like that to be approved. Because when you're operating a piece of equipment remotely, it's kind of we want to make sure people know what they're doing, you know.
Yeah,
so the equipment has safeties on it and is for the most part autonomous. But if you're giving it extra commands, which piloting is, you know, there's always a risk. So, but so far it's extremely good. I mean, it's actually more amazing than I thought it would be. It's so clean. And the connection quality is just amazing. It's really good.
And are you able to talk about any of the partnerships in terms of who you've been working with on those types of things? I know last time we spoke, there was quite a few partnerships that you had that you didn't mention, and it was actually there was quite some big stuff in there.
Yeah. And so who we've been working on this, and you won't see the formal partnerships come out until we release the products, but we've been heavily working with NVIDIA and their team because we use a lot of their GPU systems and components to make this happen, right? We've also recently started working with Intel a lot on vision capabilities and processing systems, because when you're trying to put all of this tech into a system that is very low power, it's very difficult. And so we've been working with them directly on that. They also have some great vision processing units and things like that they're developing. And also they have some new stuff that's coming out in the next year that we've been working with. And so that's really exciting. So you'll get to see an announcement when we release that. Our new vision systems with them will probably come out in 4 months, 5 months. So you won't see it right away, but it's coming. And we're using it right now on the robots. So it's very cool stuff.
So with everything that's going on right now, is the vision for Aitheon, what is that? Does it remain the same? And also in terms of your sales forecast, is that on track, off track? Where is that right now?
Yeah, so the vision has really stayed the same. It's bring these systems to small and mid-sized businesses. Now, we did get derailed because obviously we were working with some enterprise clients, right? And so that detracted from that mission, but now we've kind of regained focus on that original goal. And so how that will roll out is our services you'll see come out over the next 6 months. We have them planned every week or every 2 weeks. There's something new that's coming out that everyone will get to try. And then you'll start to see the heavy AI, machine learning, robotics components start coming out end of February, March-ish. And so our goal here is that people can get acquainted with the systems themselves, how they work, and then we will layer on that AI. That way we can get feedback from the user interface, from the users and whatnot. How we plan the sales model, that's something we've been trying to figure out as well, because in the past we kind of had a different marketing approach. It was make articles, news interviews, all of these things, crypto advertisements, things like that. And we spent a lot of money doing that, and it didn't really tangibly result in growth that I saw. I mean, we really tried to nail it down and say, is this working or not? And then looked at what other people are doing, and was that working or not? Because you see, we had articles coming out, we had these things coming, but there was no result. Like, we were not getting more signups. So our average signups per day are, a couple hundred users, and it didn't change. No matter how many articles or interviews or anything we did, it really didn't change that much. And so we started rethinking how should we do this? What's the better way to do it? Because I don't think we're reaching the audience we want. And so we've kind of switched gears in the last 4 weeks. And so what we did is we made a commercial for Aitheon, and we're going to be streaming that on YouTube. Okay, so we're going to do advertising that way, and we're going to heavily push into AdWords, affiliate programs, things like that, because that's what a lot of the SaaS providers are doing, and I think it's going to be a better route for us. So we've teamed up with two affiliate companies that will be helping us with that, and then we're getting some advisement on the best way to form these AdWords and things like that. And so after our launch here with CES, you'll start to see kind of this advertorial advertising AdWords focus come out. And so we've kind of calculated it down to, this is exactly what it will take to get X amount of users, and this is our acquisition cost and all of these things. So we've put a lot of math behind this, and so you'll start to see a lot of growth in that area as we get adoption. And I think that's going to be the key here.
Yeah,
so.
And I think it's quite a complex product in the sense of if
Yes.
you're a bit overweight and you want to lose some weight, you go get a weight loss product. It's very simple, where
Right.
you could have someone struggling and they see Aitheon and it might just go straight over their head because they don't actually understand what it is or what you offer, where actually
Right.
you could be the solution, if you will.
Right. And I think that was a big problem of why our marketing model we had designed didn't work well. And it was because we knew all of the ins and outs of the product, but then when you try to get a journalist or um, someone that is writing an article or an interview or something like that, you try to get them to understand it, and you have like 2 minutes, right? How does that work out? And it just didn't work out, right? And so now what we've done is we said, okay, we have Aitheon, right? And Aitheon has all of these pieces, right? Let's kind of break them off, give them all their own landing pages as a unique product themselves, and then start this new campaign. And so what we have planned is 22 different landing pages. So you can go to the project manager service and it has its own landing page. It obviously comes back to the main Aitheon page, and when they sign up, they still can select other things. But that way you're capturing the guy who's looking for project management, he gets to the project management page, the landing, right? And so now it casts a really wide net that has extreme focus. And so it's been a lot of work to do this, but it now allows us to have more focus in those marketing campaigns, because each product then can have its own unique marketing targets and campaigns. And so we're getting a lot of different market share with that.
So it's just a bit more targeted and specific. Really.
Exactly. Every piece of Aitheon will have its own target. So that way we can pull people from all areas in. So
cool.
Yeah.
I think you've probably just answered the marketing question, which was towards the end. So you sort of you're knocking these off as we go along, so it's quite good. There was we'll probably go to there's quite a lot of investor questions, so we'll go to them now. So there's quite a few. So I suppose the first one is there any new exchanges planned going forward, or is it just LA Token and some of the others?
Yeah, right now, kind of our plan with that is to get on the exchanges everyone wants. It's two things, okay? You either pay them a ton of money, right? Or you have to have high adoption. And so our thought right now is, okay, since we are launching and our largest clients are non-crypto, our client base will be non-crypto, does it benefit the community for us to go spend a ton of money on getting a big exchange? Or do we put that into marketing and this plan to get greater adoption, and then the exchange wants us to be on it, right? And that is the better route, is to get the velocity up, to get the use up, and then look at other exchanges. And so we'll probably do that after our entire rollout here over the next 4 months, 5 months. And then we will start looking at those exchanges.
Yeah,
so
I think that's
right now it doesn't really, it doesn't do anything for anybody, right? So,
no, if it went on Binance, it'd probably have a little spike and it would come straight back down again, and without any.
And no one wants that.
Adaption.
Yeah.
And you would have spanked a whole lot of money that you could have used on something else. No, I think right now it's probably a lot of projects are in that mindset of we're not going to pay these crazy prices to get on, and actually let's focus on the adoption piece, and then they'll want us, and then they'll either put us on for free or just really cheap.
Right, exactly. And because we have to be conscientious of what we're doing with our capital, right? It's, I think the old way of crypto projects was, hey, we have a bunch of money, let's just spend it, right? And my approach, because I come from a different realm of business. You know, a lot of people in crypto projects were building something and then got money. But I've been doing business my entire life, and I'm very frugal when it comes to funds, because you don't know what's going to happen in the market. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, you just don't know. You can plan, right? You can make great plans, but it doesn't mean it goes as planned ever. Like, that's one thing you can plan, that it's not going to go to plan. And I think when we saw the markets crash and then projects started to get absorbed, it's because they thought it was going to be great forever, right? Or it was just going to be awesome. Well, from the beginning, I've always plan for the worst. And if it's better than that, you're doing great. You know, that's the best way to plan. And so with that type of planning, we've basically been able to ride any storm, you know. So, you know, we focused on getting paying customers to fund, and, you know, so we have residuals coming in. We still have, you know, funds from ICO and things like that. And now we're very diversified, right? And so we'll continue to focus on that. And it's just better business. It's better for
because I suppose in that there's actually one of those questions. What is the sort of level of cash burn with an Aitheon? And also, I think in December there was an article released where you were looking for more funds. Is that to grow through marketing or?
Yeah, so that is actually an interesting thing. So it's not that we're necessarily looking for funds. We're looking for possible VCs, but it's mostly about connections to market segments, right? Because right now we could just go to a VC and say, look at all this cool stuff we have, and they'll give us a huge valuation and a pile of money, okay? But it's not so much having a pile of money that makes a product successful, right? You need to have market connections. And so that's what we're ideally looking for. Obviously, there would have to be a fund exchange involved in that, but we want to look for those firms that, you know, are deeply entrenched in certain markets, like industrial automation. There's a large, they're a venture cap, but then they're also heavily in industry, like automation and things like that. They're a household name, and we're talking with them, but they have the entire industry connections in that specific industry. And so that's the type of thing we're looking for, because it's the adoption that is going to make Aitheon successful, right? And so we're looking in very specific industries that we would want to pull someone in that has been there, right? They know how it works, and they will take us to that level, right? And that's very important. That's the most important thing, is having people that know the ins and outs of an industry and that will take you in. And so that's what we're really looking for there.
Not what you know, who you know, type vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
It can shortcut a lot of heartache, if you will, and time.
Yeah, and that's really how, you know, one of our advisors is how we got into the big projects we have right now too. It's all about those people that have the connection. So it's not so much about the money raised. It's more about what opportunities can be brought, right? So, yeah.
Cool. And then I suppose the other one is obviously from the ICO price, we are slightly down, to say the least.
A little bit.
I suppose that the big question that came in, and it came from quite a lot of people, is, you know, what is the plan to sort of get that back to at least ICO price, and sort of the development, and how long would you see or envisage that taking?
Yeah, so what I see there is, really, as with anything, it will rise with use, right? And so that's why we are so focused on just launching the entire platform. Because the faster we launch, the faster we roll these things out, the faster we get market adoption, the faster the velocity will increase, right? And so that is ultimately the source of growth, right? And so we're focusing on that. Other people would suggest, oh, do articles, hype, all this stuff, and or like exchanges, but it's comes up and right back down, right? And so it has no long-term sustainability. And so what we're focusing on is really getting user adoption, and that will drive all of that, right? And so with our launch now, I think we'll start seeing it pick up here very quickly, especially with our marketing plans and things like that, because as users come on, like I gave those stats out, there's a lot of use there, right? So if org of 20 or so people is using $200, $150 of ACU a month, and you get 1,000 of those, right? You're already getting a lot of velocity, right? And they just keep using more. That's the thing is, what we've noticed is they start out at that, but then they start using more things, right? Because now they have more abilities. And so it just grows over time. So yeah, I think it'll be good here in the next couple months. Everyone will be pretty happy.
Okay. So I suppose you've got two things. You've got the two markets. You've got the high-end blue chip customer, if you will, and then obviously you're the growth for the future, which is obviously the medium to small term businesses that will drive that longer term.
Right. Yeah. We have to be our goal is to be really well diversified, right? Because you don't know which direction the economy is going to swing. And with the reports coming out, everyone's either saying, oh, we're braced for a recession, or the world is recession proof. It's like two different arguments, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen. But if the way we've targeted, we have our enterprise clients who generally have a higher chance of suffering in a recession, right? But then we have the small to mid-sized businesses who generally grow during a recession. And so, because they're more nimble. So we're trying to balance it very evenly so, we can be the base of business. So.
If you want to know what's going on, just go on Trump's Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. I think those tweets drive the markets right now.
It's right? Crazy. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. He loves it. He absolutely loves it.
Yeah, that's true. He does love it.
Obviously, you're doing CES, which is obviously is quite renowned in terms of like new technologies. I've seen some adverts actually the other day on Facebook for some. I think it's like a trike you get on it. It's got electric motor, but it does all fancy stuff. What's the plan sort of for industry exposure, trade shows, those types of things, educating people so they can touch, feel the robots?
Yeah, so what I want to do is, with our goal with CS here is obviously come play with the robots, like touch them, feel them, try the platform, all of those things. But then the second plan is, which ties into what I was talking about before, is finding those industry partners. We're in Eureka Park, and in Eureka Park is where a lot of these VCs and investors come. And so we're hopefully going to meet different groups that have the industry experience we're looking for, to kind of take us to the next level and grow into different areas. But then also look for other partnerships. And then obviously we have the media too. So getting that media exposure, things like that. And so that's really what we're going to be pushing for during this event. Yeah.
Cool. And one of the questions was, will there be sort of an updated timeline for 2020 in terms of what you're looking to do, when marketing activities will take place, etc.?
Yeah. So we have a new roadmap that we've put together on when kind of pieces and components will roll out. And so we'll be publishing that probably in the next week or two on our site and through the emailer and things like that. And so people will be up to date with that. And we're going to start more consistently sending out emailers as the different components launch and things like that.
And can you discuss how many types of different robots you have and which one's your favorite?
Which one's my favorite? Well, we have a new one, which is pretty cool. Let me see here quick. So for services we're launching, we have 35 that are coming out in the next 4 to 5 months. So 35 services. And then we have, for our robotics, we have Yezhik, who's now going to be post CES, will be available for sale. And so his starting price will be about $799 or $9, so $7,999. And then the price will come down with quantity. And then we have our Felix perception system. So you normally see it on the robotic arm, but it can adapt to any robotic arm. So we have that kind of sensor suite now, and that will be available for sale after CES as well. So anyone can buy that and use it. And then we have a new robot that we were working on in December, and we kind of gave some hints about it at the beginning of the year. And so this robot won't come out until end of February-ish. And so we started working on with iRobot on it. It's uses one of their Create platforms. It's like an OEM chassis, but we adopted it to our Aitheon electronics, all of our hardware, things like that. And so this is really geared towards hobbyists, students, college, for people that want to use Creator Studio and get involved with robotics. It can be used for some lightweight commercial applications, like we have an application where we're moving like trays with plates of food on them with it. So you can like move them between tables and things like that. And so things like that. And so that one will be around $599. Okay. Dollars. And so we have, those are kind of the spread of robots right now. And then we will also be releasing the hardware. And so the hardware will come out around March. And so that's where you're going to get to see a lot of our IoT components. You'll see a launch of Creator Studio with that, and how to program those things. But then we are selling the components of the robots. And so that's really targeted for other OEMs that are looking to take advantage of the technology stack we've built, but they don't want to go out and build a research team to basically reinvent the wheel, right? And so now these manufacturers and OEM of products can simply use our hardware, put it into their robots, program it with Creator Studio, and then launch it with Aitheon. So.
Okay. And then I suppose you talked about all the services. Can you talk about, maybe give me an example of maybe a service, the type of robot, what different things it could do, what other applications it might be able to do as well on top of that, how a customer may expand on that?
So I can talk about the application we're doing right now. So we're doing like a lot of warehousing, right? And so kind of how that works is you can buy a Yezhik robot, right? You get it, you power it up, you connect it to Wi-Fi, and then you go into Aitheon and add it to your device manager, right? So it's a robot now in your system. And now that robot is available to the entire platform. And so it can go and grab tasks, it can work with other robots in the system or other pieces of hardware. And so like with Creator Studio, what I can do is go into Creator Studio, make a new program or drag and drop pieces of, maybe I want to change its internal configuration, you know, on how it's supposed to react or its behavior, things like that. So I can drag and drop those pieces in and then immediately just click deploy and select the robot. And so pretty much anybody can use this. It's so easy to use. And so that's like from a technical perspective of how to use it. But maybe the user's not technical, but they want the robot to go fetch something. And so what you can do is you can bring the robot around, and you can teach it stations, we call them, in the platform. To maybe it's a station to get something or something like that. And so you can move it around, or you can do it graphically. And then from there, once it's kind of taught, all you have to do is go into your control panel in Aitheon, and you can say, I want a robot to go fetch this thing. And so you just drag down task for robot, go get this, done, right? And the robot will start doing it. And so now when you're thinking like we're talking about a manual process there. But the automation and AI is designed to mimic human kind of human behavior, right? And so all of these manual functions are available to that. And so that's where you start to see the blending of this automation happening. Yeah.
So could it, for instance, let's say you've got a massive warehouse, there's lots of different things in different places, and you get an order through. Could that feed through to the system? So like a coffee set, a flask, whatever, and that will just go off to those stations, pick it up, bring it back, and then you just another order comes in, and it will just go get those different things from different places.
Exactly, and that's exactly the kind of work we're doing right now. And so in Aitheon, we have a tool called OMS, Order Management System. And we also have another component that's sales. So you can literally, if you just enable those two services and then set up a warehouse in smart infrastructure in Aitheon, and you have your robots in your device manager and tell them that they're in this warehouse. When you get a sale, if you make a sale, so you send someone a quote, they approve it, and you make the deal, it'll automatically go from the sale to OMS, figure out which warehouse to deliver it from, calculate all of the inventory across the entire organization, and then the robots will take those tasks, go fetch all of the items, build the order, allocate it to a truck that's supposed to ship, right? It knows when the truck is supposed to get there, and it will tell the truck this is where it's supposed to go. And then based on all of that, this system will also rebuy new product, right? And so
it's stock and order at the same time, so it's managing everything.
Everything. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable how it all works. So now if you take that into, think about a restaurant even. Like, so then now we're talking like mass e-commerce scale stuff, right? But now let's scale that idea down to a restaurant. And it's the same thing. A person orders, they order a burger. Let's say a burger, right? You know everything that goes into that burger, right? It gets moved to the kitchen. You either have a robot or human prep. Maybe it's a combination of both, right? It's delivered to the person. We know how much waste we had. We know, what was consumed, all of those things, so we can do the reordering. And now we have tighter controls on our expenses, right? And so you can apply these same methodologies really across multiple business segments. So it's very cool stuff when you start playing with it.
Yeah, it's sort of like you could see it in maybe 5-7 years or so that, when you go to McDonald's or something, that, everything's inputted on the screen and it's just delivered, and behind the scenes it's just all robots and very little manual labor. It's crazy.
Like one of the things we're doing a lot of vision work right now. And so, the other thing about companies is how do you know, like for your employees, like when they clock in, clock out, take breaks, things like that. Like in the US, that's a big deal, right?
You don't get much holiday, do you?
What?
You don't get much holiday.
It's very confined in the US. Like you get your 15-minute break at this period of time twice a day. You have to clock in at this specific time. You have to clock out at this time, and it just doesn't really pan out. It's like always a nightmare. And so what we're doing is, And it's not good for people either, right? You should have a little more lax system, right? But you have to also account for what's happening, right? And so we're using a lot of computer vision to kind of figure out, when people are moving around, when they get to the office, when they get out of the office. So they're not having to do all these processes. But then we're also working on like productivity, like people work best at this time, or this person works best at that time, right? And so there's a lot of interesting things we're working on with that as well, because if we combine that human behavior, which is the best for the person, along with the AI and the robotics, then you get a very balanced system, right? And people will have more fulfillment. They'll be more encouraged to do great things, right? But right now, kind of the working environment we have is show up, do your job, take your break. Your performance is this. It's not good enough, and we're trying to stuff everyone in boxes.
Yeah.
It doesn't
happens
work.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't really work. And so the reason why companies do that is because they have no other way to have metrics, right? There's not a good way to gauge performance, right? And so they have to like confine everyone. And so we're working on some really interesting things with our HR tool and all of this automation, how to blend that so a company is more balanced and operates autonomously. So.
And there's been, I suppose, one of the final questions that we have is more of a personal question from me. Obviously, I've seen a lot of things on things like universal income. So where they're saying, AI's taking the jobs, universal income, or everyone gets like $1,000, for instance, and stuff. How do you see that playing out? The impact on Aitheon?
Well, I don't see universal income working the way they think it will, because it's like a great idea. If you like, everyone wants $1,000 a month. I mean, give me $1,000 a month. But the problem is, people are thinking more about, great, I get $1,000 a month, but they're not thinking about where did the $1,000 come from. Right? And so when you start figuring out how do we get that $1,000 for the person, well, it can't just come out of thin air. It has to come from somewhere. And so then usually the argument goes to, well, we'll raise the taxes on the business, right? Or businesses using automation can pay that tax, right? Well, then what happens is if you do that, they're just going to increase their price, right? And so now the original $1,000 that had, was a basic income, right? Well, we've caused inflation because we had to subsidize the $1,000, right? So everyone raised their prices, and now the $1,000 is no longer a basic income. And so now we need $2,000, right? And so it's this circle that doesn't have an end, right? It's not tangible, right? So I don't think it'll work well in the long run. It may be a short-term gain or a short-term solution, but it's not circular, right? It just doesn't work. So that's going to be a problem. And then what will happen is, you see it happening a lot in the United States, is you continue to do that to a point where the businesses quit, right? So that only works if everyone plays the game. Well, if people just decide not to play the game and leave the country, like a lot of businesses in the US have, you see the result, right? Like the US has no manufacturing anymore. I mean, or very little, right? Because it didn't work out, right? They became so cost prohibitive to do business in the US, then they just left.
And China's so cheap, and
yeah, exactly, because someone else wants them. That's the problem. And so when you start introducing these ideas or plans, it just, they're not thinking about that. So
yeah, because I was following a guy called Peter Yan. He's going for the or he's looking to go for the presidency, and he's very much a big backer of that. And he was talking about a lot of the elements to it. He said it would reduce crime, less people in prison, and obviously, I don't know. There's.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a stretch. You know, it's like the golden ticket, right? It's gonna fix everyone's problems.
Yeah.
You know? And that's great. Yeah, I'm sure it will fix everyone's problems for like the first year. And then the businesses that you're taking all of this from, they will just either fold or leave, right? I mean, have you read Atlas Shrugged?
No, not yet.
By Ayn Rand? So that's a really interesting book. It's one of my favorite books, and I try to read it every 2 years. It's a massive book. It takes a long time to read, but essentially, it's talking about a society where you have producers and you have looters, right? And what ends up happening is the looters keep taking more and more and more from the producers, and because they think they deserve it or they earned it somehow, right? And they're not looking at the producer's position, right? And so what ends up happening is they pass so many laws in this society to take from these producers that the producers just start to disappear. Like, they're just gone. One day they're there and then they're just gone, and they leave their factories, they leave everything. They just burn it to the ground, right? And eventually they all leave and the entire society collapses because they were only focused on, living off the producers, right? They weren't trying to make a new economy, right? And so I think these universal basic income ideas or these different ideas come from that idea of, oh, well, we can just, this producer is using robots, so they have so much more money. Why don't we get that money? And usually that's just not exactly the case. It's, there was some reason they had to bring the robots in, and they're probably not actually making that much more money, right? They just have higher consistencies and things like that. And so it's turns into this weird mindset. And so, yeah, in the book, everything collapses. So I'd recommend reading it. It's a really interesting book.
Yeah. I think it, especially with all the AI and everything, driverless trucks and all this type of stuff. And that's one of the biggest, I think that and retail is the biggest jobs in America, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think it equates for 25% of all jobs.
Right.
Which is huge.
Right.
So it's like there is going to be some fallout. There is going to be some impact. I suppose it's measuring, understanding, and having something in place to be able to pick it up. But I suppose, in a sense, you guys are creating jobs through the platform, having pilots, doing the final stages as such, to be able to. Yeah.
And I think we're trying to bridge that gap because, I mean, anyone looking at this can see there's some type of conflict coming with this, right? I mean, you're going to have a lot of job loss. So how do you fix that? And the world went through the same type of situation in the Industrial Revolution and things like that, where a lot of jobs disappeared with new jobs being created. But I think what's going to be different about this industry revolution is before, the people that had the old jobs could quickly retrain and adapt to the new jobs, right? It was an easy transition. Well, now we're in a situation where technology is moving so quickly that these old jobs that are disappearing, there is no way for these people they would have to completely go back to college or learn to program completely change, right? Everything to try to get one of the newer jobs. And I think that's going to be our biggest issue. Because how do we retrain someone, maybe, an accountant or a basic person, like some normal job that was there, into a scientist?
Because there's a whole thing about I think it was the truckers and trying to get them, they're getting them to go on a coding course, but I think you either can do it or you're interested in it, or you're just not.
They're just not like, and you can't expect them to be, right? And so that's like where the piloting comes in is, I mean, we're always going to have situations where the robots don't know what to do. That's for sure, right? And so now we have the opportunity of, okay, so the truckers don't want to learn how to code, but they still know how to drive a truck really well, right? Okay, so become a pilot. Now they don't have to travel they're home every night. They're not all over the country, missing their family or whatnot. They have a stable place where they can go to work at 5 or 8 to 5, come home, or whatever their hours are, right? And they're doing the same type of work, and they're also teaching the AI what to do, right? And so that I see as a very easy transition of a type of job. And so I think those types of things, that's kind of why we did the piloting and the specialists, because that is a transitionary step to for the people that don't want to become scientists, right? So cool. Yeah, I think it'll work out, hopefully. Hopefully.
Awesome.
Well, or the robots will just take over and we'll all be like slaves or something. Who knows?
Yeah, we're on $1,000 a month.
Yeah. The robots will give us $1,000 a month.
It'll be like pocket money.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great to catch up with you, Andrew. All the best at CES, and it's some great questions, some great answers to go back to the community with. And hopefully we can do another one real soon, because I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of questions off the back of this. And I think you said you're going to follow up with the use case for, what was it now? The kind explanation of all the usage and things like that, the Q&A and bits and pieces. So,
yeah, we're going to write an article about it, so it's more.
Okay, so people just keep an eye out. If they want more information, that will be coming out very, very soon.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thanks very much, Andrew. No worries. Good to see you.
Yeah. All right. See you later.
Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.
So you've got something a little bit extra to announce to everybody, Andrew. Can you just let us in on what the big thing is?
Yeah, and so after every service we launch here, starting after the 6th, we're going to be doing a bug bounty campaign. And so as you're using the services or whatnot and you find issues, you're going to get a reward for those from the team in ACO. And so how that'll work is you'll find within the help center on the Aitheon platform, you can create a bug report, and it's on the side there. And you can take a screenshot and a brief description, and if you submit those and it turns out they're actually bugs, you will get the reward. And so we'll have more coming out at the launch time of how much that reward is and how it all works, so you guys can stay tuned for that. But it's a fast way to collect ACO. So